back to talk more about patterning today. So in yesterday's video, I started talking about the basics of how the ego works and how that lends itself to getting your pattern out. So I was talking a bit about how the ego has its own agenda always, and its agenda is to fulfill what it feels to complete what it feels is your incompleteness. So to fulfill the limiting beliefs that you hold, to prove those correct every single time. And so that is what your ego is going after every single time when you're going after something else. So you may think you're going after that promotion, you may think you're going after that relationship, you may think you're going after that new home, but your ego is going after something totally different. It's going after fulfilling your own limiting beliefs. And so then you may ask yourself, okay, well then how is it that I ever get anything that I want in my life? Okay, I may be able to, list some times when I didn't get something that I was going for, but I have a life and clearly I've been able to create some things in my life that I wanted. How does that work? So we've talked about the ego being, the unconscious beliefs and such. We've talked about intuition connecting you to your superconscious or your genius. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the subconscious. So the subconscious, essentially its job is to take orders and to say yes to whatever order it gets. And it says yes to the order that holds the greatest power, the most energy. So something will feed into it, and something else will feed in, and it's constantly weighing like, okay, which one? And whatever has the greater power, it will create. And so I talked about how the ego is our default because that's the crux of who we are. It's the crux of our personality. And so that's what's running on default all day, every day. And as a result, in most cases, it is going to have the greatest amount of power. As a result, we create our own beliefs, whether or not we're realizing that or not. And again, unless you've intuitively done some work to identify what those beliefs are, you're likely unaware of what your unconscious limiting beliefs are. Now, imagine for a moment that you use intuition, you tune in, and you bring to the surface some of those unconscious beliefs. You kind of unveil the story that's playing out for you on loop. Now you're bringing that to the surface, and as a result, you're disempowering that because you're acknowledging, okay, I see that for what it is. I see that that's just a story. It feels 100% real, but I acknowledge that those are the beliefs that I carry, and I see now how that plays out. And then you say, okay, I get that I have this belief that I'm not worthy enough, that I'm not worthy enough for what it is that I want. But you know what? I'm now acknowledging that that's just a story. That's not really true. And I'm now saying, I want this. I want that house, or I want that relationship, or I want that promotion, or whatever it is. And I'm connecting to that vision. And every time I kind of slide back into my ego, and I feel those beliefs, I feel that story coming up in my mind, I'm going to refocus. And this is how I know I'm swinging the pendulum in favor of what it is I really want. And so your subconscious says, okay, then we'll create that. It's completely structural in that way. It has nothing to do with how good you are, or how bad you are, how worthy you are, how unworthy you are. It's just structural. There was more energy, there was more power behind that, and so that's what was created. Isn't that cool? In that way, it can actually be quite empowering when you understand it from a structural standpoint. It's almost like a very basic mathematical equation. And so that's how you consciously create, and that's how you shift out of your ego, shift out of your unconscious into consciously creating. So going back to the patterning. If your ego is always going for the same thing every single time, then it's going to follow the same steps every single time. And as a result, we can identify what those steps are, and we can put them in order in which they're followed. And we can also identify what it is you think is happening during that time. as well as what the ego is doing, as well as here are some what are called access points where you can kind of trigger yourself and realize, oh, I'm in my pattern, recognize it, and shift out of it, refocus that energy.